Hey folks, welcome back to Apocalyptic Guitars. Yes, today we're going to do truss rod. Yes, truss rods. Oh boy. Yes, they are quite essential to an electric guitar. Although I suppose you don't have to have one in, but you should have one in. So let me show you what we got going on. Alright, so as you can see, we have our neck basically on our poor man's router guide here. Now, I did a video, my last video actually was how to make a poor man's router guide and or slash sled. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back a video and watch that and you'll know exactly what the hell I'm talking about here. But we have this is solid. And this is just using the super glue and masking tape trick, and that's not going anywhere at all. So that's pretty much good right there. So then we got the neck here, and basically what we can do is take these clamps off now, because this should be pretty much set now to where we don't need it anymore. And yeah, basically I secure it to my workbench just like this, and I'd say leave it for about I would say about 10 minutes. You don't need to go crazy with it. You don't need to go like an hour. This will set in, the super glue will set in within 30 seconds, but you want to make sure that it's not going anywhere. So I'd leave it for 10 minutes and then come back to it, and then there we go. So what we need to do now is we need to check to see if our neck is still flat. Which it is. We're set to go here, folks. We are set to go. Of course, we have our fall away down here, which is going to be the fretboard. And I did decide that I am going to use the maple fretboard on this, because I do have plans for this guitar neck. This is, of course, the angled headstock neck. I'm going to hold off on the flat headstock neck for right now, because I do have plans for this one in particular. So we're going to work on this. Now, I did the same thing to each neck at the same time, so you didn't really miss anything with this except for how to make a scarf joint, which we'll go over in a later video. But for right now, we are going to route this out, and I'll show you how. Alright, so first things first, what you're going to want to do is measure, or actually place your truss rod where you want it, and then mark out where you want it to end, where your routing is. And I know exactly where I want this to end, so pretty much we want it right there at the nut. We want the bolt part, the hex at the nut, and then there we go. That's where it's going to be. Now, I already measured all this out. This is going to run nice and flat with it, so that's what you want to do first before anything. Mark out where you want your truss rod route to go. Now I'm using a 1/4 inch cutter on my router. And the second thing you're going to want to do is, actually is to plug in your router. That would actually help. That would actually help the process go along smoothly. So another thing you're going to want to do is you want to get this at 0. Now, I know I'm at 0 right now, so you want to zero it out, your depth stop here. And then you want to measure the thickness of your truss rod by simply putting it on the, I know you really can't see this, folks, and I'm sorry, but you want to put it on your depth stop, the base of it, and then you want to measure out the thickness of it, and then pretty much lock it in. And this is the thickness you want to go down. Now we're going to take a few passes. You don't want to do all this in one pass because you could end up screwing it up. So we're going to take just a few, just minor passes, and yeah, then we'll get going. Now we're going to start this off by using your protective equipment, which is to say safety glasses and hearing protection. So let's get those out. Routers can be loud, folks. You might not realize it at first. You're thinking, oh, it's not that loud. But in the long run, it will affect your hearing. So I would use hearing protection as much as you possibly can. So let's get started, shall we? Make sure your cord is out of the way. And here we go. So we got to where we think we need to be. So now let's check our depth. And there we go. That's where we need to be. That's the depth we need to go. There we go. Now what we want to do is get thicker down where the hex is down here, because this is thicker than the actual shaft of the truss rod. So for that, we're gonna go about, so we're about there. So we want to start Alright, here we go. We want to start the cut for the thicker part of it, about right there. About right there. So we need to change out router bits. Now I would suggest seriously unplugging your router before you change your bits, because there is a risk of you pressing this button and then it'll probably tear a hole through your hand. So I would seriously not do that. And you want to check to see if this is the right thing, the right bit for your truss rod. And to do that, you just put it on the tip of your, right at the tip of the hex here. And that to me looks right. Yeah, this is the right cutter for this. So what we need to do now is change it up. Because right now we are using 3/8 cutter for the end right here. Of course, we're going to go a little bit deeper now, because it does go down deeper. So we want to now go about I don't know, 1/16 of an inch more down here. Make sure you're straight on, and then you can plug in. Now is the time you can plug back in your router. And then here we go. Another tip: before you move your router, you want to make sure it's off before you unlock it. That way you don't have to run the risk of moving it forward and then cutting a piece that you don't want cut. So let's see about this. Sometimes you might have to chisel a little bit. In this case, we're going to have to chisel a little bit. So, let's see. I got chisels. And then we've got our smaller chisels. Now, I like to take the thickest possible or the widest possible chisel for this kind of job. So now we're just going to slice off where we need to go here. Just like that. There we go. And then you could periodically check. There we go. Just like that. Now we need to chisel out here. So we're going to use a smaller chisel for that. And I believe we're going to use our 90-degree chisel for this. Take slow passes on this. Or slow cuts, rather. There we go. And then we do the other side. Now you can use a hammer for this if you'd like. Again, don't go crazy though. You don't want to chip out anything. There we go. Sometimes all it takes is just a tap. And then we can go in here and just take out the chips. Just like that. And then we can check it again. You want to periodically check this to make sure. That's very tight right there. Very, very tight. Which is good. That's what you want. You want a nice, tight truss rod channel. That is tight as it needs to be. Now for this side, what we're going to want is to cut out. Where's my pencil? There it is. We just want to take it and mark it out. So I know that's where we need to go for that. We can go back now with a tiny straight chisel and clean it up a little bit. Now, I would not rush this part. Honest to God, I wouldn't. You just want to make a nice cut. Again, you can use a hammer or a mallet. Like that. It makes the work so much easier. And then come back for your edges. Just like that. You want sharp chisels, folks. Don't skimp out on the sharpness of your chisel, because it'll make life so much easier if you have a sharp chisel. Periodically check your work. There you have it. Ta-da. That is tight in there. That ain't moving. That's not moving whatsoever. I mean, that's as tight as you can be, as snug as you can be. That ain't moving. And then once you have this on it, and it's creating pressure on it, that son of a bitch ain't moving. It'll make it nice and straight, the neck's nice and straight, and it'll create nice bow or back bow, whichever you need to do. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it, folks. And now what we can do is we can glue in the fretboard. Now, this is how I know I did a good job with this, because I can't take this fucker out for the life of me. That's how I know it was good. Now, you can use your straight chisel to kind of finagle it if you need to. That's how you know you did a good job. See? If you can't get it out just by simply taking it out, you've done a good job. Actually, we're going to take now our U shape. Just go in here real quick and get this part out a little bit here. Just like that. There we go. And we're only doing this because the shape of the hex is rounded, and so it'll fit a lot better if you just round it out. Just like that. It'll fit so much better. There we go. And of course we can go back now and see just how well it fits. Yeah, see that fits a lot better in there. Yep, we got it. And then of course we could check with our ruler to see where we're at here. So we're at 5 mil 5 mil there. And this is, let's just see. Alright, let's get this straight on. 5 mil. So we're pretty much good on that. So let's check here. This is about 6 mil down. Actually 7. This is about 7 mil down, which we can check here. Actually, it's good to go on from the top down like this with a straight reference. And that is 7 mil. So we got it pretty much perfect. So that there, folks. Oh yeah. That's perfect. That bitch ain't going nowheres. Now, we can undo this because we don't need the tape anymore. Now that shouldn't fall out. See? That lets you know right there that your truss rod, you did a good job routing it. There is a tiny spot up here that's kind of jutting out. So we're going to have to fix that real quick. I think it's right here at this point. I think that's where it's getting stuck. So we just need to go back in there with a chisel and get that part out. It's really no big deal, folks. Especially if you have a real sharp chisel. Now, I'm going to have at least 5 mil extra room on the neck here, so that's good. We didn't go too far down. It's perfect. So basically, you can take a chisel that fits, which this one does, and just clean it up a little bit. Just a little bit. As I said, we want to get in there to kind of chisel out this part. Now for this, I'm actually going to use a clamp for this to hold the neck down. Actually, I need here we go. Always use a clamping caul, because basically this is the point of no return, folks. Right here. Once you get to this point, it's the point of no return. So, what we want to do is get in here with a chisel. With truss rods, you want to get it exactly right. If I unclamp it, that would also help too. Good thing is we didn't go through the back. You do want to check that. I'm joking, but I'm actually pretty serious too. You do want to make sure you didn't go through the back of your neck, because then you have to start all over. Or you'd have to repair it, either one. But that, folks, right there, that there is a truss rod. And what I'm seeing is that's kind of bowed up because this is not straight and flat. So I think that's the problem. But just to make sure, just to be sure, we're going to go back in there with this. Let me make sure, let me mark out where it's doing it. Just to be sure. So we're looking about right there. About where the scarf joint is where it is. So what we'll do is we'll just very gently, actually we're going to use this for that. Actually, I'm going to have to clamp it down again. We're going to have to clamp it down again. There we go. We're not going to use that one, actually. We'll just use this one. Realistically, you don't really have to worry about going through the back, because realistically, at this point, you have about 10 mil of space in there. It's only when you get down to your nut is when you really gotta worry, because you only, like I say, you only have 5 mil there. But you don't have to worry about it once you get past that point. Your truss rod cavity might look ugly as fuck. I'm just gonna say that now. But you don't need to worry really about looks. It's the functionality of it. And as long as you get that truss rod nice and tight in there, it's not going to really matter how it looks. A, your fretboard's going to be covering it anyway. B, as long as it's tight in there, it won't move, and you don't go through the back, you're basically all set. You don't need to worry about it. Honestly. Sometimes, routers like to jerk a little bit, and sometimes you might get a little dip, but that's okay. Like I said, as long as there's no major gaps in between your the truss rod pocket and the truss rod, you're all set. As long as it doesn't move, you're all good. And that is totally a fact. Make sure to get everything out of there. Like that. There we go. That's perfect now. That's nice and flat in there. There we go. That's not moving. It's not coming out either. See? It's not coming out. It is perfect. Alright. Now what we can do is we can glue on the fretboard. Yay! We're actually going to get to that in another video. The next video we will be gluing on the fretboard, and we're going to let this move. We're going to let this do its thing, because once you take out material and put something else in there, it's gonna want to move around and do its thing. That's how wood is. Wood is very finicky. But yeah, it's gonna want to move and do its thing. So I'm gonna let this sit overnight, and we're gonna let it do its thing. It is still straight. The There are points in here where there's a little chip out at the top, not going all the way down, but just at the very top here. There is some chip out. You can probably see it in the camera. But that's fine. Like I said, that's just chip out from the top. That's not actually in the cavity itself, which is good. You want to make sure you get no chip out or anything in the cavity itself holding it in. If it's on the top, don't worry about it, because you're going to be hiding it with a fretboard anyway. And then there'll be actually glue in there too. These truss rods are covered. They're kind of shrunk wrapped, if you will. So you don't have to worry about getting like glue in there. It won't affect it. But that's going to be covered in wood glue anyway, so it'll solidify in here and make the neck more durably strengthened, if you will. So that's perfect. That's perfect. So we're going to let this sit, and we're going to let it do its thing overnight. And if all goes well, this will be still flat and straight, if all goes well. And then we can glue on the fretboard tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. This is Nate, Apocalyptic Guitars, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Yes, take care.